Hello everyone, and let's discuss what's been happening in Star Wars The Old Republic. Of course, the patch 5 point whatever, what was it, 5.2.1? Yeah, 5.2.1, that was the patch, or 5.2.2 was it? I don't remember, but the patch with the mount speed went live, and I did have a go on it. I bought the next tier of mount speed. Ran around the fleet on it, didn't notice a huge amount of difference, wasn't going to pay 1.2 million credits for the next tier to see if it was any different, but yeah, I mean, it's okay, I suppose. It'll get you around quicker, it gets your dailies done faster, I suppose, gets your heroic quests done faster, so I guess that's the thing. If you wipe on a boss and you can mount up, it'll get you back to the boss faster, so I guess it's a good thing that they've added new mount speed. I mean, I said a bit iffy because, you know, the worlds they make are very, very small. Interesting, though, that it is available from level 30, it said on the Legacy panel. That's how you unlock it. So you get it before you go to Hoth. So it might make Hoth bearable. So that might be decent there, although you can just skip Hoth entirely these days with level sync. You know, you don't have to go back, you don't have to go there. These days, you can just stay on Alderaan or Balmora if you're Republic, or what was it called? Taris. I did forget Taris. Taris if you're Empire. Just stay there and skip Hoth and then just ignore the story, because you'll probably be level 50 plus by the time you hit Hoth anyway these days, given that you level so fast anyway. But there you go, you can at least make Hoth more bearable, going at, what is it, 140%? That's 100. Yeah, no, 130% is. 110, 120, 130, there you go. Took me a while to work that out there, but there you go, 130 instead of 110%. It gets you there quicker, I guess. Right, so other SWTOR related things. They are talking about server merges. That seems healthy when the developers discuss server merges. So they've talked about the server merge. They started a discussion thread. Eric Musco started a thread. It was the 5th of June, so it was 2 weeks ago, really. I've been away since the beginning of June, so I haven't been keeping up with the game, to be honest. So started the thread. They moved the thread related to topic of server merges, numerous violations contained within it. So they want to do a discussion for server merges. The biggest issues with server merges, number one, is names. Character names. They really have to find a way to make character names not unique. Now, they already have legacy names that are not unique. One way to do it is to just display your account name, and it would just be character name at account name. So you would just have your account name displayable, and if someone wanted to add you to a guild, they would have to add Lonessa at account name, really. So if they wanted to add, they would have to do your player name at account name would be a way to do it. World of Warcraft does it with the cross-realm thing. It's player name dash server name. So it's like Elathan dash Silverman, for example. Whenever I see my character, or someone else sees my character and there's another character with the same name on another server, that's how WoW handles it. Because WoW obviously has a lot of cross-realm technology in play. You would have to do something similar in Star Wars The Old Republic, because I don't think taking away character names is gonna be a productive thing, especially if people have had that character name for a long time. You know, people may have had their character name for 3-4 years, and maybe someone else has had that same name for 5 years. Obviously they'll get to keep their name and you have to rename that character, but that is an issue. Okay, the other issue is, particularly in the US, is localization. The United States is a huge big country. Generally with localization in the United States, you've got the West Coast and the East Coast servers. If you merge them all together, where are you going to put the servers? You're going to have to put it in the middle of the US? If you put it on the West Coast, those on the East Coast will have massive or more latency. If you have put it on the East Coast, again, those on the West Coast will have greater latency. And if you put it on the East Coast, those from Australia And you know, sort of Australia, New Zealand, and Asia are going to have even bigger lag because you moved it away. So I think the US, maybe they should just have one East Coast, one West Coast server. The issue as well of localization for European servers in particular is the issue of language. Of course, in Europe we have three different language types on the server. We have the English servers, we have the French servers, and we have the German servers. Other languages in Europe generally play on the English server. There's a lot of Russian guilds I see around the Red Eclipse. And there's a lot of Spanish. I saw a Spanish guild the other day. There was advertising for a Spanish guild. So you've got these kinds of things. You've got Danish and other languages throughout Europe. Generally, they play on the English server, but you're gonna have to incorporate language filters for things like Group Finder. I know Final Fantasy 14 does this. You've got English. I think you've got English, French, German, and Japanese, I believe, are the language filters. So if you filter it for English, it'll only match you with English players, or people who speak English at least. And you filter it for French, you'll only get French. But then again, it kind of compounds the matter, because if you get a boss that you're trying to communicate and nobody in the group speaks a common language, it's perfectly possible on a European server that you could get 4 people and 4 different languages and not one of them speaks a common language. What if you get a German, a French person, a Spanish person, and a Russian, and neither of them speak a common language? How do they communicate? How do they explain tactics and things like that? We already kind of get this to a degree on the English server, but generally most people have a basic comprehension of English, so to speak, so that tends to be the common language used. But potentially you could get that with sort of one mega server for Europe. It is an issue. Again, we spoke about how other games do this. There was an interesting other thread here on class balance. They said how class balance happens. It was entitled. Quite an interesting read, actually. I won't go through it in... they basically look at DPS, HPS, DTPS. I think HPS is not a great way of measuring a healer, to be honest with you, because HPS is dependent on certain factors that are out of the healer's control. Group damage, for example. If you wipe in a raid, you tend to do more HPS than when you succeed, because if you're wiping, generally the group is taking more damage. If everyone gets hit by that big conal that what's his face did, what was his name, Bulow did, the big massive conal that he did, you're going to be doing a shit ton of healing, and generally you're going to fall behind and you're gonna wipe. I mean, taking the big conal that he did, if the big conal went into the group, if the big shotgun blast went through the group, your HPS was sort of 6-7k, whereas on a successful kill it was maybe 4 to 5k, because people just took less damage. When you got it on farm, you were down to like 3k HPS, EHPS that is, rather than just HPS. DTPS, again, it's not the best way of measuring a tank as well, from that point of view. Interesting that they did publish the where all the classes and specs are in regards to damage. So they looked at the damage dealers that were above the target DPS, 5% above the target. That's far too high. Kind of far too high. If you look at the sort of the DPS that were below 5% of the target DPS, again, there's too big a gap there. There's just far too big a gap between the sort of highest and lowest there. Some people saying that even in fights, it can extrapolate out to less, although they haven't said where they've taken this data from. Is it the targeting dummy? Is it a fight? Is it an average across a raid? Who knows? Who knows? They haven't actually said where the damage is coming from, where the target DPS is coming from. Is it just theory or is it in practice? Because you see in fights, you're going to see that extrapolated out, and you might see differences. Those that are above the target DPS might struggle in a certain fight because, again, they lack mobility, they lack, things like they have to use things that are, they have to use defensive cooldowns, etc. So they are going to maybe struggle there in certain fights. So they should always be aware that class balance shouldn't rely on raw numbers. PvE to an extent does rely more on raw numbers than PvP. PvP is more about utilities and survivability rather than just raw DPS numbers, because bear in mind about sort of 80 to 90% of the damage that you do in PvP goes to waste. Okay, that's the big difference between being a damage dealer in PvP and PvE. PvE, every single point of damage you do counts. It has to count for something. Okay, it has to be significant. That's why you want accuracy cap. That's why you want to hit the accuracy cap in PvE, because every single point of damage contributes to killing the boss. Bosses have enrage timers and things like that, so you need to kill boss, you need to kill ads, so every single point of damage is important. Again, if you get a resist on one of your big auto crit procced abilities, it's a disaster for your DPS. In PvP, however, you're not going to have 100% uptime. You're going to get stuns. Players have immunities. They're going to go immune. They're going to run away. Things are going to happen in PvE. So you're not going to get 100% of the damage that you do, which is why you tend to ignore accuracy, because you're going to lose you're going to lose damage anyway. If someone pops a shield ability and they absorb the damage, then it didn't really matter anyway. So about 80 to 90% of your damage is kind of irrelevant in PvP. It is that high. It is that high. But yeah, so you've got players have immunities, you know, players will run away from you, players will gang up on you, players will stun you. Things like that will happen in a PvP environment. So you have to, that's why you tend to prioritize power over sort of crit, because power is just more consistent than crit. You want to hit, and when you finally get a chance to hit, you want to hit as hard as you can and as consistent as you can. That's why, at least in 4.0, you augmented power rather than crit. It was crit or alacrity you would augment in PvE, power in PvP, just because it gave you more consistency. Okay, crit, if it crits and they absorb it, it does nothing. Whereas you get the power, it just does more consistent overall damage. Right, so that is my thoughts on SWTOR and what's been happening in it. I have been playing it. I played a little bit during, they had that event thing where you had to do some group finder stuff. I did a few things and got the title for that, but I haven't really been playing a huge amount. I'm kind of just waiting for the raid to finish and then maybe come back and play SWTOR full time. I don't know, again, depends. Maybe find a guild once the raid comes out and maybe we'll take a look at the Gods of the Old Machine raid. But in the meantime, I'm playing through Elder Scrolls Online. I bought Morrowind. I started a new character. I haven't gone to Morrowind yet. We'll probably do some live streams. Get back to live streaming maybe in the near future. I've been working quite a bit lately and just been too tired to live stream. So I've just been doing the odd videos. I've got those Call of Duty videos. Call of Duty is coming this week at some point. Whenever I get the time to sit down and write the script and record it. But other than that, really, SWTOR, play occasionally, but not really playing full time. So hopefully we get something interesting. Whether we'll get a new expansion at the end of the year, I doubt it. Really, it wasn't on the roadmap. So hopefully we get the new raid finished and wait until the raid's finished. I don't think coming back for sort of 1 or 2 bosses is really not my idea of something worth coming back to. But anyway, that is all for this video, so thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again soon, and goodbye.